The definition of a taxpayer is an individual, business entity, or other entity that has an obligation to pay taxes in accordance with the laws and regulations in force in a country. Taxes themselves are the main source of income for the government, used to finance various community needs and national development. Taxpayers are individuals or entities that include taxpayers, tax withholding agents, and tax collectors, and each taxpayer has tax rights and obligations in accordance with tax provisions. Taxpayer rights. Taxpayers have several important rights in carrying out their obligations. First, taxpayers have the right to recover the amount of tax payments that exceed the tax obligations that should be. This means that if taxpayers have paid more than they should, they have the right to recover the excess payment. Second, taxpayers have the right to confidentiality for their tax information, meaning they have the right to maintain the confidentiality of their tax data. Third, taxpayers have the right to apply for installments or postponement of tax payments in accordance with applicable provisions. Fourth, taxpayers have the right to postpone reporting the annual tax return, SPT, in accordance with applicable provisions. Fifth, taxpayers have the right to receive a reduction in the amount of income tax, PPH, Article 25 in accordance with applicable regulations. Sixth, taxpayers have the right to obtain a reduction in the amount of tax related to land and building ownership in accordance with the provisions of tax regulations. Seventh, taxpayers have the right to be exempted from certain tax payment obligations in accordance with applicable provisions. Taxpayer obligations. Taxpayer obligations include several important aspects in carrying out taxation. First, taxpayers must report their income and taxes correctly, completely, and clearly. This includes filling out the tax return, which must be submitted to the Office of the Directorate General of Taxes where the taxpayer is registered. Second, taxpayers must pay the tax owed in accordance with tax laws and regulations. Third, taxpayers must meet the same tax period as 1 calendar month or another period regulated by the regulation of the Minister of Finance for a maximum of 3 calendar months. Fourth, taxpayers must fill out the tax return correctly, completely, and clearly, in Indonesian using Latin letters, Arabic numerals, rupiah currency units, and sign, and submit it to the Office of the Directorate General of Taxes where the taxpayer is registered. Differences between taxes and levies. Taxes and levies are two different concepts in the taxation system. Tax is a mandatory contribution that must be paid by every citizen to the government, and the person or entity that has this obligation is called a taxpayer. Tax is not a result of a violation of the law, but rather a transfer of resources from the private sector to the government sector, which is used to carry out government duties and improve public welfare. Retribution, on the other hand, is a payment made by an individual or entity to the government as compensation for services or benefits obtained from the government. Retribution is usually not mandatory and can be given voluntarily. Examples of retribution are parking fees on public roads or fees for using certain public facilities. Retribution does not have the same obligations as taxes and is not used as the main source of income for the government. Thus, the understanding of taxpayers, their rights, and obligations is an important component in the taxation system that functions to increase state revenue and provide better protection for taxpayer rights. Fair, efficient, and transparent taxes will encourage better tax compliance and reduce opportunities for tax avoidance and tax evasion.